Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. This is a pre-recorded show. It's going to include some of the information about the upcoming Puerto Rican parade and how my colleague and friend Lou Pomales is representing WPKN at this point in that parade. And Lou's going to have a few things to say about Puerto Rican pride and his own show that's on Sunday afternoons. He'll tell you more about that. And it's my pleasure to have him on as a guest. And then I'm going to have some excerpts from various other shows I've had that include information about ways that the Emotion Roadmap benefits people over time and in different ways. I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to talking to you live next month. I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. at wpkn.org or 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. Thanks. You have a show on PKN that does promote music, partly of the community that you're going to host in the parade. And you want to talk a little bit about your show, Lou, and the music that you play and when that's on the air?
Sure, I would love to. I have a motto. It's not about me. It's about the music. That's why I don't call it the Lou Pomales Show. I call it La Esquina Latina, which is the Latin corner. And that's how I promote it. I'm a musician, so I know what it takes to become one. The many, many years of woodshedding, which is practicing your craft, practicing on your instrument, becoming proficient, reading, writing, composing, all of it. You spend years dedicated to your craft. That's what musicians do. And it's not a craft that makes a lot of money because, like they say, drummers are a dime a dozen. And it's true. You have to be exceptional. And I may add that these cats are good. These young kids are so talented. I could never do what they do. So I'm very impressed with that. La Esquina Latina, which I call LEL, has always been in the trenches. In the 51 years that I've been doing radio, I've made absolutely $0. And I kind of pride myself in that. I worked for a living. I retired. I'm taken care of. I'm not rich, but I'm not starving either. So I can devote my attention and everything that I hold dear to me to the program. I travel. I spend money, gas, wear and tear on the vehicle. I've purchased music. I've gone to New York to do interviews with very prominent individuals, Eddie Palmieri, Poncho Sanchez. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But I also treat the local musicians the same way, with the same respect. When I have the kids that grew up down the street who rehearse in their basement and they're good, I ask them the same kind of questions that I would ask Eddie Palmieri, Bobby Sanabria, Poncho Sanchez. And they know that. It's all about the music. And I very seldom say my name because I'm not important. Anybody can do what I do. Anyone. And probably do it better or worse. It doesn't matter, but anyone can do what I do.
Well, I've actually heard a few of the interviews you've done, Lou, and some of them are pretty remarkable. So I don't know if anybody could do what you do. I think you're modest when you say that. But when can people listen to you?
Same spot for 51 years on Sunday afternoons from 2 p.m. to 5. And Edwin Muñiz is co-host of La Esquina Latina. He's been with me since 1985. He deserves just as much credit. When I'm not there, he's there. And when he's not there, I'm there. And sometimes we switch our schedule depending on what our personal lives dictate. He does a different kind of La Esquina Latina. And that's fine. I've stayed away from telling other people what to play. I just try to give them an understanding of what they need to be looking at in terms of which songs do I choose and why. And definitely keep yourself out of the mix. If you're really good at what you do, don't tell people. Let the people tell you. You know, humility is key in being successful, at least for me.
How did you happen to be the face of PKN with the Puerto Rican community in this parade? How did that happen?
Lisette Colon, she's a community activist and a contributor to La Esquina Latina. She does interviews and stories, keeps us up to date. She called me and asked me. He said, we want to honor LEL and you by being the MC to the festival in Seaside Park and by participating in the parade. I didn't have much time to put this together, but there are some staff people at WPKN who are participating and they're helping to make this happen. I was hoping to simulcast the event, but we don't have enough time to plan that. The logistics are just too much. I've been blessed, you know, and sometimes I lose sight of the fact that the people love LEL. I've had people who say to me, my grandfather used to listen to you. And I said, damn. You know, and I've spoken to people behind bars, and I'll try to be brief with this one little story. This one young lady, she called me and she told me that she wanted me to dedicate a song to her father who was in jail. And I know they were listening. I just happen to know I get a lot of correspondence from the brothers and sisters behind the wall. And I said to her, why don't you tell him? Why don't you talk to him? She said, what are you talking about? I said, listen to what I'm saying. When I introduce you, I want you to start talking to your dad. And she did. I don't know how I would have felt if I was in jail and I heard my daughter talk to me. It's important to me, you know, which is why you and I have this connection. That to me was priceless. That was a paycheck. That's where I get paid. Okay, that knowing she didn't have to say anything, neither did he. And I never heard from either one ever again, but it doesn't matter. I know enough about emotions and feelings, and being a parent myself, I know what that must have meant for him and for her. And to the other people who were behind walls, I'm sure that they benefited from just listening to that because they were in the same boat. You know, so those are the things that are important to me.
Yeah. Well, I can see why they picked you. That's what kind of, I think you were saying about the community reaching out to PKN. That's a pretty good example of it, I think, Lo.
Yeah, it is.
Can you tell me when the parade's going to be? And
yeah, the 13th. The parade's on July 13th. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know the route it's going to take, but it's going to end at Seaside Park, and everyone's going to get together at the Shell between 1 and 7 p.m. I don't think I can MC the entire thing. I know I can't. It's too much for me, you know. I'm not a young blood anymore. I'm an old blood. So I'll do the best that I can. And again, I'm not one for people for cheering for me. You know, it's not about me. It's about the music. And that's where I've lived it. And I don't think I could have ever done it any different, knowing how I am. Even right now, I feel like I'm talking too much about me.
Let's talk a little bit about the Puerto Rican pride that you see and feel at times, because that's what the parade tends to be about. What are the things that you'd like to highlight? And this is in Bridgeport. It's going to start at Central High School. You said it was 11 o'clock in the morning?
11 o'clock, yes.
On July 13th, just to repeat that. And what are some of the things that you take great pride in about the Puerto Rican community?
Well, I'll give you an example. And this happens to this very day. When I was a kid, and every time my parents used to take us to Puerto Rico for a vacation, the second you see the island, you get this feeling, this overwhelming, warm feeling that you're home. Even though you live someplace else, you still can make that connection.
Well, it's apparently really a moving connection for you.
Yeah. I'm not even in a damn plane, and I get the feeling.
Yeah.
People start cheering, clapping, and you don't see them when people land in Chicago or California or Florida. But you experience it and you feel it when the plane lands on La Isla de Puerto Rico. It's just, I don't know how else to describe it, but that's the same feeling that people get when they see a parade and the Puerto Rican flag. Similar like when in the Italian parade, people see the Italian flag and they think about the joy, the culture, the food. And every other culture is the same way. Irish, St. Paddy's Day. And I'll leave that at that. But yeah, the pride is that strong. And even these kids who've never been to the island, who were born here in the United States, they feel it. They feel it. And they don't know why. I still feel it. And I don't know why. And I was born in Puerto Rico. I was 40 days old. Mom brought me to New York City. And we lived there for about 2 years. And the rest of my time was in Bridgeport. All my life just about. You know, high school, college, went into the Navy, you know. I was a Bridgeport person. And I still have roots there. My father and my brother's a retired fire chief. My mother was a teacher, and my father was a laborer and worked for the gas company. So it's in the blood. It's in the blood. But that pride that you feel, it's hard to describe, but it's there. And in any culture, when you see your flag and people are waving and they're celebrating your culture, it brings up all these emotions. But the best example I can give is when that airplane lands in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's just like, wow. And you can feel the heat, literally, but figuratively as well, the heat of the passion of the island, the history of it, the Taino Indians, the Africans that were brought there, the Spaniards, which I won't even talk about because I have my feelings about that. It's about the pride. In the gay parade, they are proud as hell. Italians, they're proud as hell. Irish, they're proud as hell. Portuguese, they're proud as hell. African, they're proud as hell. So it's an opportunity to let everybody know that we feel this way about our culture and we're trying to share it. And we're trying to bring more people into the fold so that they do understand, and there's good and bad in all cultures. Not everybody has the same breaks that I had. And it's hard. It's hard on them in any culture. So.
Has PKN been involved in the parade before?
No.
So this is the first time. So that's a milestone.
I like to affiliate myself with organizations and people who are doing good things the right way. I believe in them until such time that I don't. And that holds true for anything, whether it's PKN or the Puerto Rican Day Parade or politics, presidents, foreign dignitaries. I like them until I don't, until I see something that, that's wrong. You don't do that. And then I distance myself from that individual or organization. Right now, it's going to be a good thing. It's about time. I'm glad it's happening. I want to give kudos to Lisette Colon for taking the bull by the horn. She's going to be running the show there. It'll be hot. It'll be tiring, but I owe it to the community to show my face. We don't even know what you look like. I said, that's okay with me, but it's not okay with them. And I have to respect that because after all, it's not about me. It's about the music and the people that I serve for the last 51 years.
Well, thank you very much, Lou, for being part of this show. And I hope that it promotes people going down and taking a look at the parade and getting a look at you and and also recognizing that PKN wants to be part of the community. And this is just another way to demonstrate that as well.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I love your show.
Well, thanks. You're a big reason why I have a show. So thank you for all that.
Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
My name is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks for calling. How can I help you today?
How you doing, Chuck? Thanks for taking my call.
I'm doing good.
Yeah,
thanks.
I have. I don't know that I could even name the range of emotions currently in my life. My father, and this is what it's related to, is 88 and has a number of different health issues. We had a scare recently that almost looked like end of life. He's holding on now. He could live for a year, 2 years, maybe even more. But it's a delicate situation right now. He's currently in the hospital. He's getting good care. Moving to a rehab, but we don't know what the future is. One thing is he's dead set against going to a nursing home. And, for 2 weeks there, I was like primary caregiver, not something that I'm good at nor want to do. So just a lot going on and a whole range of emotions related to it.
So the emotions you're feeling, can you describe any of them?
It's kind of like, well, first of all, I worry about him. He's 88. He's had a great life. He's been a good dad. So should he, pass, I'm okay with it. I think maybe it's related to being put into a position where he's asking me for care compared to a professional, which maybe part of that is like, wait a second, I'm your son. I'm not your caretaker. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So maybe some resentment there. Fear is going to be part of it because it's an unknown being in this world without my father. and fear about regret. So I want to be involved. I want to be engaged. I want to be a part of it. Should this be termed as end of life sort of thing? But there's only so much I can do. I have a wife, kid, job. So I want to continue to be helpful, but I can't take on the role as prime caretaker either. So yeah, whole range.
Well, Patrick, I think you did a great job explaining how you're feeling. So there's the way this works is I'm also going to ask you how you think your dad's feeling, because I think it's important. And by the way, there's other people involved too. How your spouse might feel, how your child might feel about all this. But I think the two key people right now are you and your dad. And at the moment, I'm going to ask you how your dad's feeling, and then I'm going to ask you, what do you want to feel? And then let's see if we can help with that. Okay.
My dad's been really open. He said, Patrick, if I go, I'm ready to go. He has fear about dying. He's expressed that. I'm like, why? And he says, well, it's an unknown. He also feels fearful that someone's going to put him in a nursing home. His brain is 100%. He's sharp as a tack.
Mm-hmm.
So he has that fear. Otherwise, he gets bored and he gets lonely.
Okay, so I think I got how both of you are feeling. What would be ideal, let's say, for your dad to feel? Let's start with that and then come back to you.
My dad to feel, I don't know. It's hard for me to speak for others. I suppose he would want to feel inspired and hopeful.
Okay. Inspired, hopeful, cared about, supported.
Supported, yeah, cared about.
Yeah. And somehow safe, I think, is important to him.
Safe, yeah. That's a good one.
Okay, and how about you? What? Yeah, I know what you're feeling. What would you like to feel? If you could, whatever we talk about and whatever plans get put into place. I might be part of the planning process, but you've got a lot to think about and plan for, obviously. So, what would you like to feel ideally at the end of all that planning? What would you like to have happen in terms of feelings?
I would like to feel that my life is manageable. I'm able to participate, which would make me feel grateful, I suppose, to be able to help. And I want to feel content. I want to feel that resolved in that I did what I could do to help. I want to feel engaged because I want to be part of it. If we're talking about end of life stuff, you don't have too many chances at this.
Right.
I want to feel a part of it. So I think those are some things that I want to feel.
Okay, so we basically have sort of carved out what you are feeling, what your dad is feeling, and where you want to end up in terms of both of you in a better place in terms of how you're feeling about what's going on. There's no stopping what's happening. It might be something that end of life could be, as you said, somewhat quickly. It could be a few years from now. But there's certain circumstances you've also described that your dad doesn't want to have happen, and it feels like he's kind of leaning on you, I think, and that's part of what's causing you concern because you've got all these other responsibilities, and yet you want to be involved, you want to be engaged, but you don't really want to be the caretaker.
That's the tension. That's right. Exactly it, Chuck.
Okay. All right. So having got what you said, I'm sure you're already thinking about some things to do. So what might create the feelings that we talked about for you and your dad? Have you had some thoughts about what you think might come next?
In terms of what he's going to need?
Yeah, and what you're able and willing to do.
Well, he's in a holding pattern right now, so, maybe the next 3 weeks are somewhat taken care of for him. He has a procedure, a surgery that is yet to be scheduled, but it should be scheduled in 3 weeks. And then, so it's a bit of a day-to-day situation right now, where, right now the needs are just go visit him, which I will do today. But I can't predict the future. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's variables that are unanswered. So I don't know what's going to happen, after 3 weeks or a month. I don't know what he's going to. I don't know what he's going to need.
Let's assume for the moment that he's going to make it for a period of time, because obviously things could end quickly. But let's assume he's going to be around for a while, and you have to have some way of caring for him that is something opposite of a nursing home. And have you explored any alternatives that might be somewhat realistic that over time your dad could accept and might even welcome?
No, because we haven't had to. I foresee that the day will come sooner rather than later, and likely it would be, paying for support at his house.
Do you have any kind of? Well, first of all, I think there's. I think what happens is people, have their whatever resources they have get exhausted, and then sometimes the government helps out. But if they have resources and that's not the problem, then you don't have to worry about that part of it. Are you in a place where financially you don't have the resources and you got to figure that out too?
He's got resources.
Okay, so it's not about financial.
Whether he's willing to expend them for his own care is another question.
Yeah.
But again, we'll find out as the need arises.
So,
but he's got resources.
Okay, so my guess is you haven't really been in any. Sometimes I'd like to ask the question, Patrick, have you ever been in a situation where there didn't seem to be any possible way to get to closure in a good way, and you had to confront it and you could move past it? But I think this is kind of unique. You haven't had a situation quite like this, I'm guessing, ever before in your life where you were facing somebody you love, needed this kind of care, and you weren't quite sure what to do. I'm assuming this is a brand new circumstance for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so then the question becomes how to be creative around this. If in talking with your dad, I suspect this happened in the past where he wasn't able to come to grips with the decision he had to make in the past, and you were able to help him through it. Not obviously about this, but anything else that might relate to that. Is there any time that you can think of when your dad was having a hard time making decisions and you were a resource that he pulled in and you were able to help him to come to some kind of decision? Good or bad, he made a decision and moved forward. Can you think of anything in the past that was like that?
Not big ones, but little ones. But bigger decisions, he decided on his own. He didn't necessarily seek feedback. He has a very strong personality, and he's shown himself to be very competent throughout his life. So, but little things he'll ask for advice on: car purchasing, clothes, bikes, stuff like that. And he brings me in, or any technology issues. So he brings me in for those things. I help out.
Okay, so going forward, you need to find a way to put up some kind of plan, a thoughtful process together for you to come away from this phone call feeling like, hey, that was worth it, with some idea of what you could do that's different than what you might have thought about before you called. And so let me ask you, at this point, are you okay with me suggesting a couple of things?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it sounds like your dad's a really smart guy and he's made a lot of his own decisions. On occasion, he's brought you in. That's what I just heard, right?
Yep.
So in your meeting with him today, I mean, right now, I think when people are first reacting to like a circumstance, a huge, enormous change in their lives, which this probably represents for your dad, this kind of final chapter stuff, it's scary. And you're not really at a place where you can be a rational problem solver necessarily. So you may not have a conversation that you can comfortably try to problem solve. And I think jumping too quick into problem solving is a problem in itself. So maybe today is just about listening. But while you're listening and while he's talking about what's going on for him and his concerns and repeating back to him and just reminding him what a good problem solver he's been all his life. And asking him, not advising him, but asking him, so Dad, what do you think, given these different situations that you're telling me about, not you bring up, but things that you hear him say, like, I don't want to go to a nursing home. Then what do you want to do, Dad? What are the possibilities? Because really, what I want to do is I want to hear from you and I want to start thinking about how I can be helpful to you. That feels supportive, right?
Yep.
And in asking him about that, you'll find if you allow him the space and you remind him of what a good problem solver is, you're tying into the strengths that he's exhibited in the past that he knows are true about himself. So you're not making stuff up. And you're just asking him to use those resources to move ahead. This new problem for us. We haven't dealt with this before. What are you thinking, Dad? What do you want me to look up? What do you want me to research for you? What do you want me to find out? What are some things I can do to be helpful? And if he goes to the place where I want you to take care of me, you gotta let him know. Well, okay, I understand that, Dad. You also know what else is going on in my life, so I will, to the best of my ability, I want to be there every step of the way I can for you. But I also got other people that are dependent on me too. So I will do that. But what else can we do? So you don't ignore it. You don't say you're going to be full time. That's what I'm doing next for the next however long you need, Dad, because that's not realistic. But you still sound supportive. You're going to do what you can, and let's win. And I think you're, based on the way you told me your dad thinks and acts, he's enough of a problem solver and a rational and actually sounds like an excellent thinker, a bright guy. He's going to start thinking, this is what I need to think about. And you're talking about contingencies, not that you bring up, that he brings up. So it feels like you're only helping support the things he's already thinking about as opposed to telling him what he needs to do next, which is how a lot of people feel.
I like it.
So that's how it starts. And then you got to explore with him things that make sense, right? That you feel that are possible. And it's just the beginning of, what's hopefully a long conversation, because hopefully he lives a long, he has a few good years left with you, and you work out how you're going to get care for him. And ultimately you find something in some place and someone that can come in and help him in times when he needs to be helped regularly. And you're there pretty regular too, but not to the place where you're giving up everything else in your life to do this.
Got it.
Does that help?
It's helpful. Thank you, Chuck.
All right. Thanks for calling, Patrick. I appreciate the call, and good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay. That's how the show works, folks. It's about helping people and trying to walk you through what's possible. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, Chuck. It's Doug McLeod here. We've spoken in the past. How you doing? It's great to hear your voice again on air.
Thanks, Doug. Nice to talk with you too.
And very helpful. What you were saying, it kind of was dovetailing with a conversation that I was having with our family. My wife and my brother-in-law are speaking with their father. My father-in-law, who's 82 years old, and he has early onset dementia, which he's been diagnosed, and he's working through a plan to just make the most out of his life. And the struggle that my wife and my brother-in-law are having with him is he just won't write a will. So they now have power of attorney, and they've gone through a lot of the kind of the legal aspects of ensuring that he'll be taken care of going forward. But he's remarried. He has a young family, and he just hasn't made really any provisions. So that's a conversation that's been ongoing for probably a year, maybe a little over a year now. Historically, he was the type of guy that would always assure us that everything was taken care of, that, don't you worry, that my affairs are all in order. But kind of when it came out that, that he had this diagnosis, and they began to, look at, his plans for the future, it turned out that he really had no will written, down. And find it very, very difficult to commit his thoughts and his wishes, into a document that will help guide us, beyond his life. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about how do you handle something like that. I think that I'll just go off the air and listen to what and what your thoughts are.
Well, can I ask you one question before you go, Doug? Just is there likely to be an argument about what is given to who? I mean, in other words, he's got a young family and a new wife. The two people that he's charged with taking care of or being responsible for carrying out whatever executive responsibilities arise at the time of his life ending are not the person who he's married to. It's his two children from his previous his wife, I guess. And so, is there going to be controversy over how things get divided? Is that a problem?
Well, I think in his mind it is, because part of the conversation, and what's wonderful is they have a Friday. Every Friday there's a conversation, there's a call, with him, his wife, my brother-in-law, and my wife, to talk about, how the week went, what plans they're making, what needs to be done, in terms of, all of the kind of the aspects, for care in the future. And what has been agreed was that at some point, when he does need to go into long-term care, how that will be paid for, and the idea would be that the main asset, being their condominium, would be sold, to provide for his care, and that the remaining part of that asset sale, would go to be put as a down payment on a new property or an apartment, for his wife. His son, my brother-in-law, is 16 years old, so he'll be going to university, in the next 2 years. So really, what he'll need to provide for, obviously, is his wife, and her, and her accommodation. But he also needs to provide for himself and his care. Happily, he does live in London, in the UK, and there is a bit of a social safety net, there. But that's really the contentious part. Is he doesn't want really to put into his will that his assets will be divided 50% or whatever the percentage is for his care going forward, and the other 50% to take care of his wife and her accommodation.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of complications here and no easy solutions. I guess, what are some things you've already tried, Doug, just to get those out of the way, to try to get him to do something around this?
Well, just a continuing conversation. My wife has written, he visited us here about 2 months ago. Set up, went through kind of how easy it is to write a will now. Kind of using software and just putting it, putting all your ideas down. He likes to write things out. He's got beautiful handwriting. He loves to write long lists, and he put all of his. He was very, very cogent. Put together, all of his ideas, down on paper. It's actually having him put those ideas into a final will or a living will, for want of a better term.
Okay.
And then having that, witnessed and made into an actual, kind of a document which can be kind of serviceable to him and his needs going forward.
So the likelihood of him doing that sounds slim at the moment. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Again, we take it in in turns. It's an ongoing conversation, and again, my wife and my brother-in-law, use some of the tactics that you just enumerated, in terms of putting it to him as to what he would like to see. We're very grateful for the care that he receives from his loving wife. She's entitled to everything that she gets. And it's just really trying to ensure that that he has everything that he needs. When he can no longer kind of voice what his wants and needs are going forward. So I think we're going to try again in November. My wife will go over to London. This will be a continual conversation. It's just trying to, I think probably my advice to my wife and my brother-in-law is that stepmother needs to be brought into that conversation so that she doesn't feel that she is being separated from or cut out of the will in any way, that that she is very much on board in that part of the she just feels that that the state will take care of everything, and we know that that's even with a national health service like they have in the UK, that's just not going to be the case.
I'm sorry. Who needs to be included? You just entered a different person's.
Oh no. So his wife needs to be included in that conversation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And up until now, we've left it really to him to have that conversation. But I think that probably she needs to be brought into that conversation with my brother-in-law and my wife, as to kind of to specify what her needs are, and lay it out so that there are no surprises.
So maybe I guess in the trying to be helpful, let me get okay to suggest something to you that might be. I don't know if it's possible because this is very complicated, but I have some thoughts that might be useful. Okay to share?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sure, go.
So one of the things that I'm thinking is that when you want to, your wife needs to convince your dad that how does he want all of us to feel once he's no longer able to make decisions about what happens, going forward with any of these things that he's already written out, but he hasn't done anything about confirming. How does he expect us to feel? How does he want us to feel? And if he understands the complications that arise from undocumented, even though he might have wrote something, and the contentious feelings that might put people against each other and leave his legacy as something where people are at each other's, throats because of what he didn't do. Is that really what you want, Dad? Yeah. And then go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
So, and then if he's open to it, and by the way, he may not be when you first say it, but I just like you to think about that, Dad. I'm not asking you to decide anything now, but just think about what do you want us to think and feel about you when you can no longer communicate with us, because we love you, we care about you, we want all of this to go as best we can, and I thought you would too. So that's the emotional appeal, the motivation, I think. The second is, so how do you do it? I think one of the, you might have these software programs that allow you to write wills and et cetera. I think you want to find a lawyer in the UK that your wife, your brother-in-law, and his current wife, your father-in-law's current wife, all agree on, that has had experience with families going through something similar, and really feels like they will try and create a win-win scenario for everybody. Because I think these are very hard things to do because there's so much emotion caught up in all of it. But if you have a professional who has a reputation for bringing families together as opposed to just being a bulldog that fights for what they think the person needs, because that's what happens on the other side of this. Everybody hires a bulldog, as opposed to all of you agreeing on a lawyer that will help your dad write a will that everybody understands and feels reasonably good about. Nobody's going to get everything they want, but reasonably good about. And your dad can go into this knowing that his legacy is something positive as a model for how to bring people together in a very tough circumstance. Does that help?
No, I think so. I think what you're talking about is almost having, an attorney or a solicitor act as a kind of an arbiter, to kind of, to bring the parties together. Even though it's all one family, right now, kind of talk things through and help decide. So I think that that's the rational side of it, and then the emotional side of it, is something that that we are working on. We do work on the emotional side, and he gets very emotional.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
He gets and I think that again, trying not to pressure him into deciding right now, but to pivot on that point and make it about how does he want all the parties to feel. Gives him some food for thought and something that he can actually work on actualizing. So no, I appreciate it. I knew I could count on you. I thought I would reach out.
That's nice. Hey, let me make one other point very clearly. This is a lawyer, because what happens often is people get their own lawyers, right? If it's not done and everybody's fighting in a courtroom or trying to settle outside of court. But what I'm suggesting is it's your dad's lawyer who's helping him with this will, who has the experience of talking to the parties that are going to be recipients of whatever there is to be given. And he's tasked with the idea of your dad wants him to create as much as a win-win possibility for everybody involved, not just write the will.
Yeah. No, I think that's we'll give it a go in November, and I'll reach out to you as a sidebar and let you know how it goes.
Thanks a lot, Doug, and good luck with it too.
All right, good talking to you. Thanks, Chuck. All the best. Have a great summer.
You too. Thank you. Bye now. Okay, so the calls today were about people with caregiving. It's interesting. I'm working with a woman at Yale who's a faculty member named Joan Monum, who we are looking at what are the roles and responsibilities of caregiving and how might an emotion roadmap help. So at the end of this conversation, when this particular archive of radio show is archived, I'm going to send along both your conversations today, Patrick and Doug, and because this woman, Joan, is a faculty member who specializes in long-term caregiving and finding ways to make that whole circumstance easier and better for all the people involved. And she felt like when we first met, that the emotion roadmap could be a tool in her toolbox that she wants to let the world know about, and all the organizations that she works with that are involved with this kind of circumstance where people at the end of life are dealing with lots and lots of emotional charged issues. And it's really hard for family members to try to be rational and use the different things that they learned over their life, the different experiences and knowledge to try to create win-win circumstances for everybody that's involved in something like you just described, Doug, and Patrick described earlier. So thanks for the calls. I hope that this, again, illuminates and elucidates for other people who are going through similar kinds of struggles, ways in which you might think about being helpful. I did want to talk a little bit about this idea of the concept of what I call Eros, the Greek god of love who was created passion. I think, as I started to talk about in the very beginning of the show, about workplaces where people feel the lack of support, feel like they don't belong, sometimes feel bullied even at work. How can you turn a workplace into a place where the culture is so healthy, so supportive, so caring, so energized, so inspired that people really, really even love going to work? How can you create a passionate workplace where people care about each other, where people who are connected to the organization in any way, whether employees, family members, people that support the organization as vendors, people that are customers, people in the communities where the organization resides? How can everyone feel special about what this organization brings every day? What do workers need to feel? What I'd like, I've got a few more minutes left. If anybody's got something they could share, it'd be really helpful. Have you ever been in a workplace, been part of a team that felt inspired, that felt fully engaged, that when you went to work, you felt like it was It was like, wow, today's work day. I get to go to work with all these neat people, do wonderful things, make people feel good about their circumstances, work together collaboratively, be inspired, be creative, feel safe and belonging, feel supported, respected. Well, what actually did you feel when you've gone through any kind of work time experience where you felt anything close to that? Can you tell me what was going on and what you were feeling? Because I view my audience as people who are smart. Obviously, the two people I just talked to, you, Doug, and you, Patrick, smart people, really, really clear-headed, good thinkers, challenged with a circumstance that anybody would be challenged by, looking for some expert help. Well, I find that when I ask, sometimes I get great information from my listening audience about things that I'm exploring now. And I'm exploring, what does it take to make employees feel special? Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Thanks for calling. Who am I talking to?
Hey, hi, Chuck. My name's Bob.
Hi, Bob.
And I just wanted to comment on your thought as far as what makes the people happy when they work. Myself, I think it's appreciation for what you do, compensation, obviously, respect, feeling as if your ideas are appreciated. Those are important things, I think.
Great. Do you have any examples of something that's happened to you at all in the workplace where you felt that way?
Honestly, I can't honestly say I do, because I worked for the federal government for like 40 years. And to be honest with you, I didn't see a lot of that where you could contribute and your ideas would be appreciated, that kind of thing. So
yeah, so
I kind of wish I was working.
This is what you would hope would happen. This is what you're thinking would happen that would make you feel special, right? I think you gave 3 great examples. I think you appreciate it. I think the idea of trying to create an environment like this, you have to be creative. Not everybody gets this, and I think, Bob, you're not alone. Whether it's the federal government or lots of different organizations, don't make people feel this way. That's what's typical.
No, and the problem is it tends to be cliques. I see where groups of people tend to, gather and treat each other with more respect, or they get better benefits, and it could be based on the fact that they're all into baseball or they're into football or they're, whatever it might be. And a lot of times it's managers or high-level bosses that get into these cliques, and then they just kind of promote up their people. It's a sad thing, really.
Yeah, it's understandable at one level, because when people first go to work, it's like, who are these other people? And what do I have in common with them? And then when you find there's a number of people, especially if they're the people in charge, who actually care about something that you care about, and you connect with that, it's like, it makes it easy for everybody, because we know we got something to talk about, as opposed to we've got to go on a business trip together and we don't really have anything that we share in terms of values or things that we care about, and it's awkward. So when you got something like that, I think it's normal behavior for people to want to do that. I think what I'm doing in the work that I'm doing these days is trying to get people to move past that. To just do as you said, appreciate people's ideas. Appreciate and
respect people, and that's a big thing. I mean, I'm retiring this month, actually, after 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, it depends, I think, on how you were raised and brought up, but you got to get beyond this thing where, he's a Chinese, he's a black, all that racism stuff. It's just got to go. People are people. We're all spirits locked in these little packages called bodies, mm-hmm. and we're all the same. And we just got to get beyond that, I think, honestly. Myself, when I first started with my job, I got into I did the wrong thing. I was we voted in a union. I supported the union. And then I was approached by upper management, and they basically said, hey, we think you'd be a good guy to be a union rep, so you could work with us. And I thought, okay, maybe it'll help your career, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sure. And so I did. I became a union rep. But what I found was the management would come to me and they'd want me to pass things that were going to hurt the workforce. you can't do this anymore, and things that would actually impact pay and things like that. And I pushed back, and so I think what happened there is I just pushed back and I upset the wrong people, and that was it. So they kind of held me down, but that's how it goes,
It is how it goes often. Yeah, no, it's interesting. One time I was working for Exxon. I've only got a minute left here, but I was working with Exxon, and they asked me to work on this idea of trying to maintain non-union status. And what I discovered is the way you maintain non-union status is you have good management. It's not rocket science. When people are happy with the people who are supportive of them in the workplace, they feel respected, they feel valued and appreciated. They don't want to belong to unions. Unions,
right? And absolutely, that's correct. And we didn't want a union. It was just that the government decided they were going to change the pay scale and the pay system. And then when we saw the lawyers jump the ship and join a union, start a union, we thought, well, maybe we need one too to represent our interests when we negotiate a new pay package. And that's kind of how it started. It wasn't like people were upset with management or this or that. It was just that they wanted to change. They
wanted benefits that they could count on and real negotiations. That isn't always the case. Hey, Bob, I've got to go, but thank you. I'll tell you this one thing, and then I'm going to close. One of the things I'm trying to do is in big companies now, a lot of them, they've talked about shared values. And so, like, respect is often a value. People say that's in our organization. We're supposed to respect others, and that's different. When I say shared feelings, but do you feel respected, and are you respectful to others? And I got to close with that, Bob. Thanks so much for the call.
All right. Hey, thanks. Have a good day.
Bye now.
So you've been listening to today's show, and I want to thank everybody who's a regular listener for tuning in. And those of you that might have just tuned in for the first time, the show has been it's called the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And in the instances of the show, what you listened to in the beginning of the show, if you happen to be tuned in at 12 noon, you heard my colleague and friend Lou Pomalis talking about the Puerto Rican parade that's taking place in Bridgeport on July 13th. And Lou's going to be the representative for WPKN. It's our way of showing community involvement in Bridgeport and with the Puerto Rican parade. And it sounds like a really nice time. I hope you get to see it and be part of it. And Lou's as a regular programmer on Sundays at 3:00. And he has a show that's all about Latin music. And it's all about the music. If you listen to Lou's interview, you know that. Also, you heard several people talk about elder care. It's something that I'm kind of focused on these days. I want to talk about the idea of how the Emotion Roadmap can help people with challenges with elder care, with caregiving that has anything to do. It isn't necessarily just about elders. It can be with younger people who are perhaps on the spectrum or have some kind of illness that impacts their ability to live a full and active life. And parents have to engage in caregiving right from the beginnings of a child's life. So it can start at any time. But a lot of it has to do with when you're getting older and your abilities aren't what they used to be. Sometimes it's your memory that fails. Sometimes it's physical ailments that impact you. But anyway, life changes. The chapters at the end of our lives are quite different than when we're highly productive in the prime of our lives. And how do we cope with all of that? How does that happen? So there's a lot of things that take place over the course of our lifetimes that are challenging emotionally. My show is about helping people deal with those emotions. We're not necessarily having to deal with the emotions we feel at any given time. While our emotions are always helpful in the sense that they're trying to signal to us things that are important for us to be aware of, they're not always particularly helpful for what it is we're trying to get done. So, for example, if we're with an elder parent who is having some difficulties letting go of driving his or her car, being unable to live without assistance, when those kind of challenges come along, there's nothing easy about the conversations that we have to have. But using the Emotion Roadmap to think about how are we feeling, what would be ideal to feel, how do we create those ideal feelings, and even if we're feeling things that are very uncomfortable, but understandable and realistic, what's the self-talk, what's the narrative we're saying to ourselves that helps us to cope effectively with those challenging feelings? All that's part of this show. So I hope that you've been enjoying what you're listening to. I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month. Again, this is Chuck Wolf. The show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And it's designed to be helpful to anyone who's listening, to hopefully at some point in your life, while you're listening, you begin to use the Emotion Roadmap every day. It becomes something that is important and impactful in your lives and makes a meaningful, positive difference for all of you. That's why I volunteer to do the show. I'm now in my 16th year and enjoying quite a bit of it. And I'm very thankful again for all of you who listen regularly. And I hope you find yourself really not only enjoying the show, but finding it helpful and meaningful and impactful in your lives in a very positive way. So thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you again in the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. Thanks. Bye-bye now.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.